So I'm excited to jump into an interesting topic because I have this theory that there are tools that just work and you should always use them because there's no downside, and there's tools that you should wait until you know what the heck you're doing before you jump in. So we have GETIDA on here. We have Lisa from GETIDA jumping on. So Lisa, if you would give us a brief overview, background of yourself and GETIDA as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. So happy to be here and happy to have finally met you in person last week. I always like having an in-person connection with the host as well. So my name is Lisa Kinsky. I'm the marketing and partnerships manager at GETIDA. Quick little backstory about me. I've been playing in the e-commerce space since about 2020, joined via a full service supply chain company and made the move to GETIDA in 2 years ago in June. So I've always been on the service provider side, never on the seller side. I co-host both the podcasts that we have, attend a lot of the shows. So really my job is to travel the world and talk and make friends. I have the best job ever. And what GETIDA does is we are the global leader in Amazon FBA auditing and reimbursements. So what does that mean? We are an all reward, zero risk solution to help sellers make their businesses more profitable through FBA inventory auditing and reimbursement claim filing on behalf of our clients. So, those are a lot of big words that to some people mean nothing. But for sellers who have ever had a discrepancy and had to file a claim with Amazon, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And this is why I'm so excited to have you on here because there are things that are just pure positive, right? There's no downside here. If there's nothing to be reclaimed, great. You don't pay anything. And there's few tools that, we were talking about the Proven conference where we got to meet in person this past weekend. And I was talking to a brand new seller. They walked up and said, what are all the tools I need? I was like, okay, deep breath. Because a lot of times it's positioned incorrectly. It's, well, I'm at six figures and here's all the tools I have, and I couldn't do this business without it. That does not translate to you need those tools now. And so my go-to philosophy on this is there's kind of two categories. There are efficiency-based tools and effectiveness-based tools. Efficiency-based tools help you be more efficient at the thing you're doing, right? Like sourcing. Like, you have tools that help you source better or faster, but the reality is if you're not effective at sourcing and you add an efficiency based tool, you're now efficiently ineffective. So it's not really worth the money. But then you have this interesting class of tools, and there's not a ton of them that are truly effectiveness based tools, meaning they're not just speeding you up and you don't have to be an expert to get the value from it. They're just doing the work for you. They are the experts, and that's what you're paying for. So, repricing is certainly in that bucket, and so is GETIDA. And so a lot of sellers say, well, when should I get certain tools? I kind of think through that lens, but then I go through the lens of, well, in an ideal world, if that tool costs you nothing, there's no cost associated to it, and you increase your performance in some way, shape, or form, it would probably be worth it. But most tools have a cost associated to it because we need to make money and exist. So for me, it's always trying to figure out at what point does the cost make sense relative to the ROI that you're getting. But with you guys, it's so interesting because it's kind of like day zero. But let me know, like, when should people consider using GETIDA?
I I love what you said before about a brand new seller starting out asking a six-figure seller, "Hey, what tools do you use?" or a seven-figure and eight-figure. I firmly believe in if you're the smartest person in the room, get out of that room. But you also have to surround yourself with mentors as much as you do peers because like you said, the tools a six-figure seller is using are not going to be what you need now, right? You may need those in the future. What's unique and exciting and exceptional about GETIDA is we are a tool that seller of every size can use. And I firmly believe whether you're doing it internally or using GETIDA, that a seller should begin auditing their account for discrepancies and filing claims for reimbursement from day one of their business. There is no time. You can't be too soon in making your business more profitable, right? Everybody wants to increase their profit margins, especially in today's economy and in today's Amazon landscape where the fees are ever changing and mostly just increasing, right? Like there's a couple in the 2024 fee update that did positively impact sellers, but for the most part, it's really squeezing in on their margins. So it's never too early to begin recouping those potentially lost funds.
Yeah. And if you think about the sheer complexity of what Amazon is, if you try to think about it like the systems and all these things, No, every software company is duct taped. I don't care who you are. Like, there's always bugs, issues, little sluggish things. Um, and Amazon is at their scale bound to have countless issues. And we like to talk about what's worth your time and what's not worth your time. A lot of sellers getting started, they're working full time on top of this. And so I tend to recommend, hey, work with the prep center. Like, you can take that from a variable cost to a fixed cost later by getting a warehouse when you have the time to and the capacity to do that. But you need to free up as much of your time to do the things that only you can do. And a lot of that's going to be sourcing. And so if you think about how many times things can go wrong and you're able to put something in place that automatically is doing this for you and doing it right, you can seemingly take that area of the business and remove it from your brain, from your focus and your attention, and refocus it on other things. You're not wondering, what have they messed up that I haven't noticed? And I think that's something too, right? It's not just doing the work once it's been found, it's also finding the work that needs to get done. So go ahead, please.
I was gonna say it is because so often what we'll hear from sellers when we're going to, conferences like the Proven Conference or Seller Summit or Prosper is almost that they're unaware that things are being missed. They're not even worried about, oh my gosh, what did they miss this time? Because Amazon, when they do find an error on their own, they will reimburse you. So sellers believe, and perhaps rightfully so, that whatever Amazon is automatically reimbursing them is all that they are due back. But when you think about the number of packages that are, think about the number of packages you get at your own home. Everybody's sitting at home. Think about how many Amazon orders did I get in the last 30 days? Now, apply that to every single person in North America. The amount of products that are flying out of these doors, things are going to happen. And it doesn't behoove Amazon to chase their tail all day long to say, okay, well, Dylan sent us 1,000 units, but the packing sheet says 1,000, but I only counted 900. Does anybody know where nothing would ever get shipped? So when Amazon does find an issue, they will reimburse you. Absolutely. But they're not going to chase their own tail all day long trying to identify every problem, because then they are neither efficient nor effective. They just, operations come to a screeching halt. So it is the seller's responsibility. While it is smart to outsource to experts what they do well and keep your lane of expertise on your to-do list, sellers do need to understand kind of every part of their business. So it does make sense to do a little bit of internal auditing to begin with and understand, okay, here are things that are going wrong. Even your reimbursement types can give you some insight into some packaging that you may need to make improvements on, or your product's functionality. And so it's good to understand your business in every way. And then at some point say, okay, I've gone back and forth with this Amazon rep for the last 5 days and I just can't do it anymore. I need an expert with time and expertise to take care of this for me because they can worry about it. I have 100 other fires, not to mention a family and a home that I need to get back to.
Yeah. And it's hard to hear you say that and me think about all the work you're doing and then hear also that I'm not really paying you until it goes well. Right? Like, it's too good, Lisa. It sounds wonderful. Walk me through your fee structure and how that works.
Yeah, definitely. So GETIDA is an entirely performance-based business. We only get paid when our sellers get paid. I know that there is some hesitation with sellers with using like agencies and software providers because what are they going to bundle me, or what is this extra fee? So GETIDA, we only get paid when you get paid. Sellers are reimbursed directly into their Seller Central account, and we send an invoice for our percentage of the cases we were able to successfully get closed for them. Sellers can still file claims independently when they are plugged into GETIDA. We're not going to charge them for the work they did. That's bananas. And there's also no sign up fee, no account management fee. There's no, I need an extra coffee on a Tuesday fee, nothing like that. And even if there is a lot of back and forth with Amazon and we're not able to get it successfully closed, let's say that there's a difficult lost and bound issue or weights and dimensions or whatever claim may be the problem. Even if we've gone back and forth with them for a number of days or weeks and Amazon still says no, because that does happen, unfortunately, not often, but it does, we're not going to charge you because at the end of the day, you didn't get paid back. This is a win-win business that we're in.
Right. And that's the thing that makes me so excited because, again, I can take it out of my brain, I can hand it over, put it on autopilot, but know that I don't really have to manage the cost function of that thing, right? If I'm working with an agency, like a PPC agency, and they're going to say, cool, it's going to be a flat fee plus 10% of ad spend, I have to measure that really well and manage it to ensure that we don't go from very profitable and scalable to we're breaking even. What are we doing here? Um, and there is something about that, right? It creates this level of insurance where, like you're just saying, Amazon's going to do what they can, but it's also like the responsibility is ultimately on the seller to surface up, hey, we found a discrepancy. Can you help us on this? And then they'll jump in, which I kind of get from their perspective. Amazon's massive. They don't, I mean, it would cost them so much to do that. So they say, well, cool, we're going to take like this distributed version of this model and say, well, we're not going to create a whole team to go and find these things. You just tell us and then we'll take action. So it actually makes a lot of sense, but it does open up the door, which is that's now your time and things like that. So, I know we initially talked about this app proven because I'm the dork who's like AI, all these things and automated. But you're like, actually, it doesn't make sense for what we do, and there's some downsides into doing that. Can you go deep into like why AI doesn't necessarily fit as a solution in what you guys do?
It's very plain and simple and in a couple of words. It's against Amazon's terms of service. Claims
That,
have to
yeah.
be filed by a person. Now, you can use a software like GETIDA to scrape through your inventory. So we have a direct API integration into the seller's Seller Central accounts. We are an authorized selling partner of Amazon. So we're in the partner network. We have crossed all the T's and dotted all of the I's. So you can use technology. I'm fearful to use the term AI because I think people like associate that with a lot of like creation, right? Like AI generation. So I'm fearful to use that term. You can use technology to identify the discrepancies and find the issues. Hey, my product is only, a 3 inch by 6 inch phone case. Why all of a sudden are you telling me that it's 3 inches by 19 inches? That's going to jack up my price for my FBA fees. What's going on? So you can use tech to identify the problem. The actual claim filing has to be done by a human. And you also, as kind of a safeguard on Amazon side to be sure that bots aren't filing the claims, you have to throttle the number of claims that you are filing each day. Now, it is unique for each claim type that exists. There's more than 10 buckets of claims and like 20 plus subcategories. So I can't go through all of those today. That would just be an exhausting list of me giving numbers. But you do have to be careful to not overload the team because then they're going to think that it's a bot. Then you run into account suspensions or your ASINs being removed, and it gets very messy very quickly. So that's one of the reasons that our team is so large in the claims department. We're upwards of 240 employees globally, and I want to say like 180 of those are on the claims team. And our team specifically is largely comprised of ex-Amazonians who worked in the reimbursements department at Amazon. So they are writing the claims through the eyes of someone who would be reading and responding to it. And we do some review for our customers first, especially when it comes to providing documents, right? At the Proven conference, the majority of that audience were either wholesalers or they were doing RA and OA, right? Retail arbitrage and online arbitrage. And they had a lot of questions about receipts and, well, can I give them this invoice? And, what if I don't want them to see this? It's like, well, you can redact these pieces. This format's going to work. That's not, it's kind of like a resume review before you apply for a job, getting somebody to say, okay, we have a fighting chance here. So that's part of what's led to us having the highest success rate in the industry of over 90% successfully closed claims. And then for sellers who were filing independently before kind of handing the process off to GETIDA, we have a 63% success rate on getting those previously denied claims successfully closed. Again, just because of that industry and kind of inside knowledge, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful answer. The throttling is something that anytime you're working with an external API, a platform you're going to have. Is that throttling per seller account? Is that how
It
that
is for
works?
seller account per claim. Yep.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
so
It's
that's
it's
good.
very it's very customized per. Yeah. So we are filing the claims on behalf of the seller through their accounts. We are authorized users on their accounts. So Amazon doesn't have this like big bucket of "Oh, GETIDA filed how many today?"
Right.
It's very user specific.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
So that makes a ton of sense. And I like that you're using technology to augment and make your team more efficient. That's the thing that I think does matter, right? Because I routinely see one end of the same spectrum, which is full automation, which as much as I'm that dork, rarely works really well. There's always edge cases and problems, right? But then you have this full Luddite mode, is what I'm going to call it, because it's like, well, it's only the team and like they just do everything manually. And there's almost like this badge of honor of like, we do everything manually. And I'm like, okay, both ends of the spectrum have their own issues. And for every single problem solution set, somewhere in the middle is what really I think makes a lot of sense. And so it's figuring out how do you augment your team to speed them up so they are more efficient without it breaking in terms of service and making sure that you're keeping that high success rate. Because, and I love that you have this internal KPI, right? Because the fact that you have that and the fact that it's performance based means that you as a company are incentivized to keep that high. Otherwise, you don't make money.
Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
a huge fan of incentive models. If you can build the pricing and packaging factoring in if you win, we win, and that's the only alternative here, you're just going to do well. And you guys have. I mean, you're everywhere. So
We are. But like you said, people respond to incentives. I remember in my first marketing class in college, it was literally chapter 1, lesson 1. People respond to incentives. So we are incentivized and motivated by our sellers' success. And I liked what you said before of there's kind of this badge of honor with like, oh, we did it all ourselves. I think that there's something really admirable about like bootstrapping your business and putting in the hard work, but to it can be to a fault when it's too hustle mentality, and then you become inefficient. And there's reasons that we don't just look at the world. There's reasons that we don't take horse and buggy anymore. We have cars. Like technology has propelled us forward as much as I am worried about the AI overlords throwing us off and, eagle eye and all of that, but it's Yes, exactly. I've got my machine listening to me back there. But yeah, there's a reason that technology has become what it has and our businesses have become dependent on it because at a certain point in time, doing it manually is just no longer, in this realm of business, it no longer makes sense. If you're a carpenter, a painter, an HVAC technician, okay, yeah, you're gonna have to get your hands dirty. But in this digital age, in this arena we play in, we have so many better things we can be doing with our time. So many better things.
no, 1,000%. And this is the same philosophy we took when building our support team, right? We said, hey, we're not going to build it so that AI just does all of it and there's never a human in the loop. That's actually a horrible idea. And I've experienced that with other companies and it doesn't work or scale. And so we said, okay, well, again, that hybrid somewhere in the middle, let's automate as much as it makes sense, but the human's always in the loop. And so there's always an exit path. And we were just doing our all hands we do every Thursday, and one of our team members was sharing a screen on Zoom, and he's like, oh, let me handle the support ticket real quick, and we use saved responses like templates, macros where it makes sense, but we use these as Lego pieces. It's not just here's a massive email template which like may or may not be applicable to you. We say no, every thing is a Lego piece, and then you understand the human, what Lego pieces make the most sense to provide the most value, and then you kind of create that puzzle and send it. And so not everybody on the team has seen or peeked behind the curtains while we're doing this. And so Casey jumped in and was like, oh, let me handle this real quick. Boom, 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 boom. And everybody's like, hold on, what did you just do? And it's like, but that's how we get that efficiency baked in. It's still a human making the decisions and in the loop. So I do like that you have that similar philosophy where you are thinking about it from a technical, tech enabled perspective, but not in this, and probably a fault of my own where I'm like, couldn't we just do this with AI? It's like, well, yes and no. Like maybe not a great idea, Dylan. Don't just do that.
Yeah.
So I love that. You know, walk me through. There's still a lot of like, what are reimbursements, and what are like the go-to common problems that you tend to see in these accounts that people may or may not even be aware of existing?
Yeah. So the most common is going to be lost inbound, right? And gave the example very briefly earlier, but you ship in 1,000 units of your product. Amazon, processes it, unpacks it. You're finally off the dock and in the warehouse, and they process your shipment and they only get 900 of them. So it's on the seller to audit their account, identify that difference between units expected and units received, file a claim with Amazon and say, hey, where are my other 100 units? And really, one of two things is going to happen. Amazon is either going to come back and say, whoops, I found your extra 100 units. I'm going to put them back on your account now. Have a great day. And then you can sell that product. Or they're going to launch an investigation. They may ask for some additional documentation and say, hey, we lost it. We are so sorry. Here's your money back. Here is the list price of your product minus the fees. So it's as though you sold the item, so you get that money back, but you didn't have to pay the PPC to sell it. So it's a double win at the end of the day, because right now advertising is the most expensive line item of any Amazon business, except for maybe inventory, but I think that depends on your cogs, right? But that's one of the more common misconceptions as well, is that sellers are being reimbursed their cogs. That's not the case. It is your list price. Now, there is a small asterisk caveat with that, of if you've had this product for a while and you've been running lightning deals and coupons and, throttling the price, they take an aggregate over the last, it's either 60 or 90 days to get a median, depending on how much activity you've had in price changes. But if you've had a static price, it's list price minus the fees. So it's like you sold it. So you're either able to resell the actual item, or it's like you sold the item. It's like I don't want to say selling a ghost, but kind of.
Which is also why it's super important to have a modern repricing tool to reprice your products higher in cases of like this. We'll make it full circle.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not biased. No, that's good to hear. Because I dealt a lot with this when I did wholesale, and being a naive new seller, I did a lot of things manually, and it is so time consuming, so cumbersome. But knowing that you have an actual team that's just being notified of these things happening in real time and just immediately jumping into action is so amazing, because most sellers are single people businesses, right? Like, you don't have a ton of time, you don't have a ton of capital, especially when you're getting started. So it's honestly like, if you're not using something like Getida, you're actually losing out on money, which is a problem. So if you come in with 5 grand, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. You're losing out on actual money, and then your time is money too, right? Like, where else can you be spending? I mean, it's a loss all around if you don't have an efficient way to either do this internally with a VA, an assistant, or if you're not using a service like Getida.
yeah. Now Walmart's becoming a big conversation piece. So I am curious if you can say anything, if Getida's looking at Walmart as a platform to do this on, or if Walmart even has a reimbursements feature. I haven't looked quite yet.
So I'm less well versed in Walmart, to be totally candid. I can say at the moment it is not on our roadmap. Amazon FBA reimbursements is all we've ever done. It's all we plan to do. There we are exploring additional Amazon marketplaces. So we recently launched Australia. We're looking into launching Japan in the near future, and some additional enhancements to the tool in that way within the Amazon world. We do have a partner, Cellcord, that does the Walmart reimbursements. They do have their own processes and policies. As I think, as soon as Walmart began to really gain some traction, they clicked in very quickly and said, we're going to have this, right? So we do have a partner that handles that side of the business. At the moment, I think we're happy to just have some friends who can help, right?
Yeah, no, 1,000%. Yeah, we're kind of in that same boat where we'll definitely do Walmart repricing, but it's a whole new thing, right? And it's not something that you can move incredibly fast on, because if you're approaching it with the same philosophy of Amazon, I think you're going to have a bad time. I think you need to come in with first principles, really understand what's happening, especially on the claim side. Like, who knows their processes, right? That's its own thing, and there's not a ton of data that you can really go through and understand. Well, what are the best practices here, and how do things typically go? What's an appropriate success rate, right? That's the thing too. It could be that 60% success is actually phenomenal on Walmart. It could be 100%. Who knows? So that's good to hear. That's really good to hear. What marketplaces are you currently in?
Stores that we can support are in the North American market, so Canada, US, and Mexico. We're able to help with the European markets, including the UK, as well as Australia. So we're
Nice.
hitting we're hitting the big ones for sure.
Yeah, that's like 99% of the demand. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay. You know, we've covered a lot here and it's going to help me understand a lot more too. Is there anything that if I'm a new seller and I'm kind of on the fence or I'm just trying to figure out like what things to put into place here that I should be aware of that we haven't covered in this conversation?
So first thing to be aware of, Amazon's not going to automatically reimburse you for everything, right? They do have their policy in which you have to give them 60 days to issue any automatic reimbursements that exist. So while we do encourage sellers to act quickly, you do need to give Amazon a little bit of time to make good on their own mistakes. And then that's when a service like GETIDA will jump in, because this is kind of a more nuanced, deeper conversation, but you never want to be in the position of having to get a reimbursement from your reimbursement provider. So we can have another chat
Okay.
about that in the future, because it's a
Yeah.
longer discussion.
Makes
Um,
sense.
and use your reimbursements and your claims that are most commonly filed to help guide your business, like I had said before. So if you have a product like the poly bag is a seller's worst nightmare when it comes to FBA dimensions, because it's going to go through that Cuba scanner. And even if you've just manually imported your dimensions for a product, Amazon doesn't know if you've made a change to the item and just forgot to update the system. So when it goes through that Cuba scanner, whatever it grabs is essentially gospel in Amazon's mind. So you need to be really sure to optimize your packaging. The smaller, the better. The more compact, the better, as long as your product is still adequately protected. And also think about where you can reinvest your reimbursement. So that's something that sellers, I think, always forget about is I can then use this reimbursement money, because they'll say, "Oh, I know it's just like, 10% of a shipment here, a unit there, whatever." But that's money that you can reinvest back into more inventory, back into your PPC, into product development, into whatever else you may need at the time, right? So it's always best to start sooner. You want to look for, if you can, if you're not using a service like Atita, go after as many reimbursement types as possible, because there are more than you realize. But just be sure that you have a partner that you trust, that gives you full visibility. We have 27%, 24/7 support. My goodness. We have 24/7 support. We also have a dashboard that gives full visibility. And when you're looking at service providers, be sure that they are part of Amazon's partner network, that they are an authorized app partner. So our solution is listed there. Not saying others aren't, but we were also part of the notifications in Seller Central, is what they're calling it now. The launch was called Emerald, and we were one of only 10 service providers that was invited to participate that for the in-app notifications to say, "Hey, Gatina needs a little something to be in your Seller Central." So just really do your research on your service providers and just get started making it more profitable today. That's really all I can say.
No, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Where can people find out more about Katita and get started?
Yeah. So you can reach out to us, find us on LinkedIn. You can check out our podcast on YouTube. But the website is just getida.com, GETIDA.com. You can always reach out to me directly at lisa@getida.com, or find us at an event near you. The team really is everywhere. The office is based out of Teaneck, New Jersey. So anybody in the tri-state area, if there's an event, likely one of my guys is going to be out there. But even in shows across the country, like Dylan said, we were just in Orlando. We do a lot in Las Vegas and California as well. So we're always reachable.
Love it. Lots of, well, listen, Lisa, I appreciate you making the time. This was great for me to kind of dive a little bit deeper into understanding exactly what you do, and especially like the subtle nuances of it. Cause I think a lot of people just go, oh, you just get reimbursements, but there's actually a whole thing that goes with it that I think people should really appreciate. So appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.